Brian Avery here. Thank you for coming back to our YouTube channel here in what is this afternoon turning into a lovely sunny day again in the UK. I mentioned previously on, if you've been following our channel for a while, that the hive that you can see right here is a double hive that you can just see on the other side of this trellis. One colony facing east, which if you've been watching the latest videos, swarmed about 3 weeks ago, and on the other side is what was left after the swarm. So but that hive is a dual colony hive. It's a long hive system, so we're stacking obviously the frames side by side, not up and down like a standard conventional hive. But one of the things that's different about this long hive again is that it's designed for flow frames. So Hyde Hive and Dean Shepherd and his brother Matt Shepherd designed these hives based on the flow frames which are available in Australia. Now, I did mention earlier for the first video of this season, that's our second season here in the UK, is that I am going to do something a bit different. So here's a little twist. What you can see here are two boxes of what look like the flow type frames. However, this box here is the original manufactured, designed in Australia flow frames, and this box here is the copy that has come from China, made in China. You can see some similarities, I'm sure, from the research I've done, but what I've got here are two boxes completely unopened. I have not looked into any of these. I've never had any flow frames before, so all I've seen is them as demos elsewhere. So please, can I just say, I'm aware that Flow Frame absolutely rightly has trademarked the name Flow Frame, but please bear with me if I do accidentally mention that these Auto Frame, as the Chinese have called them, if I do refer to it as an Auto Flow or something like that. So what I want to do is just go through both of these, and what I'm going to do with these is actually today, let's just compare what they physically look like, what are my first thoughts of them, and just have a comparator. First of all, I mentioned earlier the original flow frames, designed and manufactured wholly in Australia, imported here into the UK. So that's number one. Number two, I mentioned made in China, and you can see some similarities in the design. But there are differences with these, and I'll try and pick those out if I notice them myself. Number two, these flow frames that came from Australia, the original ones. Both of the boxes, along with these Chinese ones, are designed for a 10 frame Langstroth hive. So the frames are a bit bigger. So what this means is that I've got 7 frames of each, because they fit into the standard 10 frame. And that colony, or those hives, that hive there, is designed to hold effectively 14 flow type frames. So what I'm umming and ahhing, and I haven't yet decided, so please leave comments on the channel. Do you think I should just put one set of frames with one colony, one set of frames in the other colony? Or what I'm thinking of doing, so long as they do fit in together, and as I said, I haven't opened these up, so I don't know if they will, actually sort of checkerboard them effectively. One with one with the other, and oscillate them, but do them exactly the same in both frames, or both hives. So if I had say the genuine frame first, they will be the first on both colonies. Then this second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, if that makes sense. So we actually stagger them across both colonies exactly the same, and I think that might be a good way to see how they actually compare. Do the bees have a preference to one or the other? Okay. Now, both manufacturers, so they are food grade plastic standards, both in the US, Europe, and the UK, where I am. So they're also BPA free. Which is supposedly potentially a risk. There's some evidence for potential some breast cancer, prostate cancer, as well as some other sort of potential ailments. But you get water bottles, disposable water bottles made from BPA, so it's quite widely used, but there is some evidence that food may, if it lingers in contact with BPA that it will actually leach into the food in still low quantities. Now, Flow, the Australian made, they also say that it's BPS free. Now, BPS and BPA are effectively cousins, if you want to call it that. There is some evidence that they have the same sort of potential issues. So Flow claim that they also don't have BPS. Now, I have tried to contact Autoframe, should I say, and ask them, are theirs also BPS clear? I haven't had any confirmation from that. I have asked them a few times, so we just have to bear that in mind. But for the purposes of what we're doing here, it is still food standard safe. Okay, so we're going to dive in. I've taken one frame out of there, but before I do, I just want to sort of go through what is actually in each of these boxes. So we got some tubes, we got some different ends and caps, as they are called, which I've got here. So we have, this is a Chinese one, tube, an end, and also a cap. At least that's the way I believe they are, and we'll look at how those all fit together just now. There's also, if I can find it out, the key, and we'll just have a look at it, and we'll compare each of these one by one with what the Australian system is. Well, there you can see, Kayla's decided she's going to be part of our filming today, and she's just enjoying being in the shade there. So with the Australian ones, I've noticed that they've actually got this extra smaller carton. So I'm just going to open this up, and I can see through the side that this is actually got a couple of things on there for us to use. So I open it up, there's the key, and I can see here are some more caps and end, and I suspect every one of those boxes, as we open up each box, we will find that there's a caps and ends for each of those boxes. So these are probably spare ones that Flow has actually given us, but we'll have a look at that just now. So if we're having a look at the two frames, let's take one frame out. First of all, let me just put them side by side. Make sure I get them the right way around. That way and this way. I'm having a look at the colour of the two. This is the Australian made, and this is the auto frame. So Flow frame, you can see that the auto frame ones are brighter yellow, not necessarily that in itself is anything, but if I'm just having a look at the weight, I will do some individual scales and weigh them, and I'll put this down here as to what they're actually, each frame is actually weighing. But essentially, on the face of it, they don't look that different. But let's have a look at them more closely. Okay, so here we are just looking at the two frames. My initial view, as I said, doesn't look that different, but when I'm actually having a look at the auto frame on the right, the Chinese version, is actually standing by itself. This one won't, and the reason for that is on this side you can see it's not flat, whereas on the auto frame ones you can see that they are flat. They've almost got like feet there, so that's why that's not standing. Now if I'm holding both the frames up, you can see here the gaps in the Flow frame between each, I believe they call them blades, as I'm moving across, are relatively small. You can see the frames have not yet been aligned, the cells, so that's how they would be when you were actually extracting, so the honey then flowed down. You can see those are quite even and quite small, those gaps. On the auto frame, let's have a compare. So here, less even, I can say, and some of the gaps are bigger. Now, is it noticeably different when you're actually getting the bees involved and they're going to wax it up? We'll have to wait and see. But we can see here that I'd say the Australian Flow frame is made with a sort of tighter precision, because those gaps, as you can see there, are not as big, but it doesn't look like it's huge from that perspective. I'm looking at the bottom of the frames. They've both got the wires going across, and I can say that they in itself looks okay. If I'm pulling a tension, that's quite tight against it, whereas this I can move and I can see that this isn't as tight, but as I can't get my finger in this one, so these are not as firmly tied on, so therefore I'd have to say that's a point to flow. On the other side, at the top, if we're looking at these, if you can see there, going along, twisted, we got 1, 2, 3, 4 twists, and with the Chinese version, no twists at all. So again, yep, I can get my fingers in there. With the Australian tighter version, I cannot get my fingers in there. So again, definitely when it comes to the wiring, the Australian original designed flow frames has to sort of be getting another point. Just feeling the plastic, they feel similar. I can't really say I would be able to tell the difference between just feeling it. So just the colour is a bit different. So putting them on their ends, you could see there that the auto frame, which is on the right, the Chinese one, and the flow frame from Australia is on the left. In essence, it looks like to be similar number cells. I haven't actually gone and counted them, but we can see what I believe are the caps here. This one, and all we do is we just twist these. I'll actually put that in the stand and film this. I just want to see how easy they are. But what I can tell, and I did in somebody else's review saying that they kept losing these caps. So what I'm going to do is spray paint the caps, because if we drop them, they'll be easier to set to actually find. But what I'll do is all the Australian ones I'll do in one color, and the Chinese ones I will do in another color, so I don't get them mixed up if we need to. On the top here, this is where the keys will go. So I show down there, you can see that's the water flow. If I go over here, that is the Australian flow. Now I have to play around because, as I said, I haven't done this, but ultimately we put these in and we would twist them. Again, I'll hot put these so I can hold them in as a demo, and that will move the blades up or down, and the other way you put them underneath to do it the other way. And I believe that's the same for both of them. So again, as I said, there's lots of similarities here, but I believe they are going to be made in and the way we actually operate them should be the same way. Now, how easy they are to twist and turn, let's have a look as well. So now we have the two keys. This key is the Australian one, and this is the Chinese version. Now, the key difference I can see is at the tip. You can see when the Australian one is sort of trimmed back, it's sort of so it's a lot more, whereas the Chinese one is a bit rounded. It's almost as if they've cut it off and just ground to remove any sort of burrs that might be in it. Whereas again, Flo, you've done a great job here, and I could see that having the angle in there compared with a big stub is probably going to make it easier when we actually slide it into the frames to actually turn them. So if I'm looking at the thickness of the materials, they seem about the same. Just holding it, the Flow one, because it's just a natural roundness to the edge rather than a bit square. It's a bit squarer, the Chinese one. The Flow one just feels nicer to hold, but for the amount you're going to use, it's certainly not going to be a deciding factor in you saying one or the other. But just because of what they Flow have done here on the end, which is probably going to make it easier to fit in, I'd say Flow, you've done it again as far as the better design there. So if I'm using the Flow frame, for those who haven't used or seen a Flow frame before, please do go and have a look at the website. I would highly recommend it. It's quite informative. They also have lots of videos. You can follow them on various social media, and they have tuition sessions and just Q&As as well about Flow and just beekeeping in general. But so on here is you have these. So if I turn these are the caps that when you're getting ready, you would just pop those out. Now that came out quite easily, so I can see that. It just literally just pull it out, and that's to stop that once you've finished actually drawing the honey out, then you put that on, it collects down at the bottom here, and the bees will be able to lap that up and then put it back into the frame if they so wished. Okay, so it's a nice easy way of doing that there. These autoflow ones, now let's just see how that open. Okay, comes out quite easily. Wouldn't say there's any real difference, but one of the key things I would say is, here again they've got the flow, the hole, again in the flow frame version. They do have, but it's a bit different. It comes out just through the end here, so there's a little gap there, so the honey does drip out of both. So I could see that if there was quite a lot of honey in here, the auto frames from China could have quite a lot of honey that would actually flow out, or if you didn't put the tube in, you could have quite a lot leaking out, which I'd say again, flow, I think I slightly prefer your design, but we'll have to just sort of wait and see when we do that. So these actually just fit in here. So this is the auto frame one, and what you do is then put in the key. Just make sure I get the right one for what I think. So this is the auto frame. So I've got the auto frame ones, and if I were to put that in, that's gone in relatively easy. But this is the first time, and as I turn, I don't know which way I'm meant to do it. It's normally 90 odd degrees. Okay, it's probably not that one. I probably put it in the wrong hole. So that was the top one, so let's put in the bottom one. Bottom one, so yep, that's done it. So turn that. Well, I'd say I haven't seen any movement between or of the blades, which is what at least flow call each different section. Put it in there. At least if it's auto flow, this is going in nice and easily. I can't complain about that. Okay, that has moved. Okay, no, that's moved relatively easily. But I can see if you are going to be, this is going to be in the hive, so you're not going to see the sides. One of the problems I can see with this frame is, how do you know this is being aligned back up so that you can make sure? So that's it there. That's now aligned for the bees. Okay, but how would you see that if that was in there? It's not easy to see. Let's see if Flow have designed this in a better way. So Flow, again, these blades currently are not aligned, so we're going to just try that. Let me get it the right way around. There, as I said, I'm not too sure which way we do this. So I'm going to, again, that key fits in very easily, and as I turn it, okay, that's, oh, maybe there's the bottom one, and then, so it's definitely moved it one way. So at the moment, I'm going to have to say, I don't think either of them have resolved, at least from my side. How would you know? Okay, no. So Flow, I've just turned that there completely all the way around, and now those cells are aligned. So a key factor of these flow frames is making sure that when you've finished harvesting, you put the frames back, or the cells, the blades back, so they are all aligned, so the bees can go and fill them up again after re-waxing and filling in the gaps. Flow have designed this so that they are, if I were to do it, because obviously they're facing up the cells, you can see they are all aligned automatically. That was not the case with these auto frames. So we're probably going to have to try and take these out when we're actually doing the harvest to check. So before we get started, what I wanted to just also say what was in these boxes. There's no instructions or anything in the auto frame. You have to know what you're doing or figure it out yourself. Flow have been quite very helpful in that they have an instruction manual, tells you how it works, tells you a bit about wider beekeeping and how you beekeep and what's different or not. Now remember, flow frames isn't what some people make out, and I think, to be honest, Flo's a bit guilty of this themselves, about being a bit standoffish. You don't really have to do anything. You can get a Flo hive and just put it in your garden or wherever you want to have them, and leave them, just go and take honey out when you want to. The only difference with Flo frames is the way you get your honey into a frame and extract that honey from the frame. Everything you should be doing about your brood, your bees, the health of the bees, your inspections, you should still do. There's no difference with that at all. So do just sort of bear that in mind, because if you do read, just get a Flo frame, a hive, and put it in there. And Flo do have their own hives, and as you can see there, that's a picture of them, so you can buy the whole frames if you want. Obviously I've got a Long Hive, so I don't need a hive, I just need the frames, and Flo do sell those separately. What quite usefully as well, what they've done is provide an instruction manual as to how to convert a normal box to actually, which would be a deep box. These only come in the brood size boxes, so you would need a brood box, and then how you can convert that, not a shallow super, and convert that to actually just use the frame. So if you've got lots of boxes around for brood boxes, maybe that's the way to go, and you're quite handy with your tools. It doesn't seem too complex, and to be honest, if you actually look on Flo's website, I have actually seen, or on their YouTube channel or other social media channels, they probably also have it, they do actually show you how you can actually make this, and you can actually see people making this kind of converting boxes already.